everyone's golden nugget of wisdom is only a reflection of the consciousness they are holding in the moment. Every person that we meet, every teacher that we come across is a reflection of wisdom that we already carry within us. And we're not here to teach anyone around us, but we're here to help each other remember the wisdom that lies internally.
I'm Jeff Scult. I have been on a healing and revealing journey, following my thread to my inner gold. My great honor in life is to sit with the golden ones and discover what they've released in terms of their past stuck stories, what they've revealed in terms of who they are anew, and within that, how we can each celebrate the art of living life golden. Welcome to Drops of Gold.
Hey there, golden ones. This episode of Drops of Gold is powered by One Golden Thread, the regenerative nature fashion brand that I created from my mind's eye that we can all live in regenerosity. Enjoy the program, and we've got a special code for you later on to share. You are golden. We are all connected, better together as one golden thread. Welcome to another episode of Drops of Gold. I am so honored to have a sentient, timeless, ageless being with me, Emilio Ortiz. You are a wisdom synthesizer, a curator. It's been stunning to witness that you have interviewed titans of transformation. There's no other way to say it. And so it's an honor to sit with you and to learn about your journey that brought you here, and also to learn about what you've learned from these titans of transformation. So, Emilio, welcome to Drops of Gold.
My brother Jeff, thank you so much. I think a series of synchronicities led us to meet in this 1 month trip that I've been in LA, and it's definitely not a coincidence that we met. So I'm really appreciative of you and welcoming me into your space and introducing me to the work that you're doing in the world. So yeah, appreciate that.
Wow, and that's definitely good luck. A spider just like landed it on my chin. That's it's funny because let's see. In the last month, we've had a spider that just landed on my chin. We had a hummingbird before Garrain and I started our podcast that landed in here, and Garrain beautifully, peacefully brought it to the light. So
spirit animals.
All here we go. Man, where to begin? It's funny. I did you end up bringing something to read?
I could read something that I wrote some time ago that I have in my notes.
You know, I appreciate anybody who puts their words down. And I had a chance to go back to some of the things that you've written, and I appreciate the way you express. And so, if it feels good for you, we can start there or we could end there.
Yeah, for this particular thing that I wrote, there's a bit of a context. This was during the time where I think what we would call spiritual awakening was really cranking up. It was during my first year of university, where that first year was filled with me building and creating a persona that wasn't in full alignment with my soul. And I think it happens to many people where they go down a road or a path that they utilize whatever they're doing in their life to reaffirm something that they're trying to create as a persona and trying to package it out into the world. But it's maybe because an idea that we bought from the outside that is going to get me this. Acting this way is going to get me respect. Acting this way is going to get me validation, love, whatever it is. And I had been building a persona since the start of high school, almost, of the archetype of what we see in the High School Musical movies, all those things that we see on Disney Channel, of the guy jock that runs around playing sports. He's an athlete. We connected on our passion for basketball, but also the archetype of the guy that isn't as intelligent or doesn't study or is chasing girls constantly. And I had been building up that persona for a few years into my late teenage years. And when I got to college, I ended up going to Madrid in Spain. And Madrid is a very big party city. And I fell into that world, stumbled upon it, and really let myself get carried into that landscape of going out every other day, drinking, sleeping 4, maybe 5 hours a day, and then trying to go to class and focus. And 8 months into that, my body shut down and it was no longer functioning the way that it used to. I used to really care for my body because I was an athlete, but I got to college and I didn't want to, really focus on any health and wellness lifestyle at all. I just wanted to show a persona that I wasn't. And it was around the time where, none of these topics that we talk about, meditation, were really getting into the mainstream as it is now. Like, this was only 4 years ago. And meditation habits, was not as widely talked about. But around that time, my body told me, you need to take a rest. And it was around the time where we were approaching finals week in college, and I just had a chance to look into my grades, how they were doing. Our university had a portal where you could see the assignments that you turned in, how you were doing. And I just went in to see, how much do I need to get on the final exam to be able to pass this class? And I was like doing the calculations, and I was seeing 7 classes at the time. And I said, I'm not going to pass at least 4, like impossible. I hadn't been really going to class or paying attention. And if I was there, I wasn't fully present. I couldn't even concentrate because my body was running on sugar, caffeine, and alcohol as fuel. And I think a lot of people going into college have this experience because it's their first time living on their own, their first time independent from their parents, their first time feeling a sense of or a taste of freedom that they hadn't had before. So we go wild, we go all out. And when I was at that point where I think I went too all out, too all in into that experience, my body told me, you need to take a rest. And it put me out. Like, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. Later, I started doing some research of what it was that I had. Because even in that year, I had taken antibiotics 3 times because I was feeling sick from partying, whatever it was, not nourishing myself. And I think what I had was this sense, or what I felt, it was this sense of fatigue, constant fatigue. In scientific terms, chronic fatigue. A lot of people go through that. And I knew it was happening to me because I had no energy in the morning and I had no energy to get out of bed. And I would need all these external substances to sustain life in general. And I went back, to my dorm one day. I called my parents and I said, I'm not doing well. I feel sick again. My parents are like, really, again? Like, every 2 months I'd be calling them, telling them that I was sick. And I just take the pill and cover up the symptoms, but not really get to the root cause of what was it that was happening to me. And my parents said, look, go live with your uncle for a few weeks, whatever it is. Let him take care of you. And in the meantime, my mom was going to book a flight from Colombia to be in Madrid to take care of me because I needed help. And when she gets down there, or up there, depending on where you want to look at it, she said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I was so vulnerable with my mom at that point. I don't think I had such a no filter speaking to her ever before. I told her, look, I've been partying. I've been doing this. I don't feel well. I'm sick. I need your help. And I went specifically to my mom for help because when we were living in California, she had her own spiritual awakening. And she later then became a Kundalini yoga instructor, sound healer. I remember just growing up around 15, 16 years old, my mom was all of a sudden meditating at home, had all of these like spirituality books, of these like yogis and things all around the house. I didn't really at that point think anything of it. I just said, oh, my mom's kind of going through her midlife crisis. She's just like finding herself, whatever. I'm just going to focus on my basketball. But at that point, I said, I'm ready for you to open up your toolkit or whatever it is that you've been doing. Because my mom, when I was born, she was a high performing lawyer back in Colombia. And then, always like agitated, stressed, dysregulated in emotions. And all of a sudden she was like this calm, like peaceful, grounded mom, when I was finishing high school. So I said, whatever it is that you did, I need some help. And we sat down one day and she taught me how to properly meditate, because she had tried to teach me in the past a few times, but I wasn't ready. And it's when the student isn't ready, the teacher cannot appear in the face of whatever you're pursuing. So we sit down, we start meditating. She's showing me or playing this playlist of mantras. And it's music that I had never heard before. Beautiful music, Sanskrit mantras, Om Namo, Ramadasa, like all of these like words. I didn't even know what they meant, but I was feeling so much from the music that the only thing I knew how to do was cry and let out emotions. And it was something that I hadn't allowed myself to feel since I got into college, because I was taking on this archetype and persona of the dude or the boy that, doesn't care about what anyone thinks, will do whatever he wants. But in deep internally, I was doing all of these things to seek out validation. And at the end of that meditation, I opened my eyes and I looked down at my hands, and I could start seeing the energy patterns and the colors emanating from my hands. And I think I was tapping into some sort of subtle clairvoyancy or psychic perception. And I was like, what is this? What is this feeling? Because I was also generated by a feeling of clarity, of love even. And I told my mom, like, whatever you did, like I need to do this every single day. And for the next 100 days, because I was also reading a book that came to me out of nowhere, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I said, that is the habit that I'm going to implement in my life. And at the end of the 100 days, my life had shifted completely. A lot of the party friends that I had sort of naturally started to leave my life. I started to attract new people. This curiosity awakened in me, creativity, and I never considered myself a creative person. So I began to write around that time. And I think there's a deep connection between creativity and travel or novelty, anything that gives you any sense of novelty. So that summer, I had a Euro trip with some friends, and we went to, I think it was like 6 or 7 different cities around Europe, and we did everything through train. And it was like sometimes going from, Berlin to Paris, whatever it was long train rides, 10 hours plus, and we had much downtime. And there were some moments where we're in the train and I would just pull out notes on my phone and just start writing. And these like deep insights were emerging within me. And yeah, a lot of writing came through during that trip, and also a lot of reading. I remember, those like hiker travel person bags that you carry around. I didn't have like an actual luggage. I'm not quite sure the terminology right now, but I had this bag where all my clothes was for the month that we were going to be there. I had 7 books in there. Like my backpack was the heaviest out of all my friends, because every city we'd go to, I'd stop at a bookstore and buy a new book. And I was just devouring them in that trip. I think that trip, being a month there, I had read 7, 8 books and had written all this stuff on my notes. So those were like the initial, I guess, hints of an awakening that was going on. And yeah, a lot of writing came through during that time.
Wow. Your mom, who that first meditation moment that clearly the student was ready, and the first of many teachers began to appear. What, outside of the mantras and the songs, what was the meditation practice that she brought you in? Because it clearly was magical. Was there a certain style of meditation that she was doing?
It was very simple. I don't think she wanted to take me too advanced in the beginning. So it was just like, sit down, and we're in my dorm room. Sit down, put your headphones on, start getting yourself into a state through your breathing where you can drop in beyond the mental chatter, which was very hard for me to do. But she said, focus on the mantra, focus on the words, focus on the music. And that's what I did. But by focusing my awareness on one thing, so many of the things that I hadn't been looking at came up to the surface, because these things want us to have our attention on them, the external world. And whenever we say, hey, I'm going to focus on the field instead of matter, then all these material things start going, no, but look at me, you're forgetting about me. And yeah, it was really, it's in the beginning, it was a battle in my mind of all these things that I'm, realizing and coming through to the surface. So yeah, that was sort of the initial meditation
style. Is it fair to
style.
say this is the first thing you've written?
Yes.
Which says it's not too late to design our own path. When I looked online and I looked on Medium, and I saw this, my jaw dropped, because it's another place of transcendent connection between you and I. March 10th, 2020.
Right in the pandemic.
2 days before the pandemic got real, was the day that my mother peacefully transitioned. And it was very much of a potency of almost like a transcendence for me as the artist to appear, because she was very much of a teacher for me. So it's not too late to design our own path, as the title is very much what was occurring for me on that very day.
Wow. Wow.
So there's that. The thing that is just so stunning, that there's certain of us that when we get an inkling, we dip our toe in the water and we dabble. And there are those few highly unique individuals that do a cosmic deep dive. So from March 2020, and I think it's fascinating to actually go into the notion of what drives you, which is wisdom, courage, curiosity, and expansion, as you've written in terms of your values, which is beautiful, and we'll definitely unpack those. But when I mentioned earlier that it's almost like this beautiful curiosity and this naivete and this beautiful equanimity of saying, I'm just going to dive in cosmically. And from 2020 to 2024, you now have a top-rated podcast, Just Tap In. When I talked about interviewing the titans of transformation, I mean, we're talking about Joe Dispenza and Richard Rudd and Reverend Michael Beckwith and it just keeps going all the way down the line. Robert Edward Grant. I mean, it's literally like a, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird,
of the spiritual community.
Of the spiritual community. And we're talking about like an all-star collective. And how did that happen? What was the one of my favorite questions to ask somebody is not where were you born, but where were you formed? And so it feels like where you were formed in the chrysalis was what, transformed in this meditative moment, and then this curiosity of going deep. But the fact that you've you've been a trusted ear to these masters of transformation that are here for the higher good and are coming from such a beautiful place. Tell us about your journey that led you there, and just how your journey's going with that.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I was having breakfast this morning with my sister Blue, and she in itself has inspired me in many ways with the podcast. I think we usually tend to stand on the shoulders of the people that inspired us along the way. But I remember when I was doing the research for her interview that I did, I came across a TED Talk of hers where she was talking about her hard of hearing and how our wounds shape our gifts and our purpose. And when it comes to me discovering my own gift, which I feel is this almost childlike, innocent curiosity that lives inside of me and every one of us, if we choose to listen to the child within that is always like, "Mommy, but why? What do you mean? What does this mean? What is that?" And it's like this, I look at life in that way. Like my day, most of the things is why. Like, why? Explain to me why. I love trying to understand how things work, even if it has nothing to do with me. Like I could sit down and have a conversation with you about how you built One Golden Thread and really get to the core of like, why? Like, what is it? And getting to that essence. But I feel like there had to be a wound before that for me to discover that gift, or at least cultivate it and acknowledge it. And for me, that wound was, again, going back to that archetype that I had built of that, proverbial jock that is in school, only plays sports, doesn't study, has to sort of play a little dumb in certain senses, because my only focus is sport, is practice, is whatever. So I always had that feeling of, I know that it's not that I'm not intelligent, but I can't be intelligent. Like, why should a person with the things that surround him should be intelligent as well? Yeah. And it started in the intellect a lot. So when I started reading a lot, I discovered that the more I read, the less I knew. And that made me feel very uncomfortable because I was like voraciously accumulating information because I wanted myself to feel smart. And it started off with that ego in mind of, I need to be the most intelligent person in the room, which of course it should be the other way around if you really want to learn. But when I started the podcast, it really came through with that hint of that wound of finding information just for information's sake and just to fill my brain with knowledge. So to the external world, I don't feel dumb, which itself, dumb is a weird label to put on ourselves and on other people. But the more I learned and the more I actually was coming through in these conversations with my heart of making that journey, from the intellect to let me sit down and have a conversation with a person. And sometimes I even just feel like it's my heart that's doing the podcast, and it's like sitting there and the mind is trying to go in different directions, but now my heart's going up and saying, sit, stay put, you'll have your time later, but right now is not the time. And in terms of going and really going on this journey of finding these people and surrounding myself with, people that have developed some sort of wisdom or deep knowledge about something, I feel like that for me has been the most fulfilling path that I could ever have chosen, because it crosses really well with a curious mind, and a curious mind needs that stimulation, but it also has to have a sense of purpose, because the purpose is what sustains the curiosity. if I was just curious for curiosity's sake, I probably wouldn't get bored of it, but that path to service aspect would not have been turned on. It would have just stayed at path to self. I'm getting the same information for me, just so I can feel better, I can feel smarter, I can feel more wise. I can impress people around me with what I know and what I've read. I think that's where a lot of intellectuals play and where they stay. But if you want to go from intellect to wisdom, that's when this sense of heart and purpose has to come into that formula. And the purpose for me was, I noticed that, I'm here 21 years old when I'm starting this podcast. No one around me is really talking about these topics, especially in my university. I found it hard to connect with people on that realm. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to bring this information to younger people. So for me, it was like, that's the purpose right now, is creating some sort of bridge where our generation can find a voice in themselves, and leading by example. That's something that was always in my DNA from basketball. I was never a vocal leader, never. Like, I would always put in the most work. I would always stay after practice, before practice, getting shots up, playing on the weekends when nobody was watching. But that was me coming into my leadership as embodied leadership rather than, bickering at my teammates all the time and telling them what to do. I feel like I've found a beautiful way to transfer that into the podcast, is just like leading in a way by example, and hopefully getting younger people on board to raise consciousness together, because our generation, I feel, is that bridge between worlds and bridge between consciousness, and we're going to be the leaders of the future. So yeah, hopefully to inspire, be a voice, and at the same time cultivate my own curious mind along the way.
It's a very powerful thing to think of, to really distill that your the potency of leadership is framed within the container of curiosity. And I love that you delineated back to the word that became hijacked for many as we grew into adulthood, and it's why, right? That the why is that beautiful point of curiosity and wonderment, and it grows into disdain, resentment, contempt, judgmentalness, closed-mindedness, challenging another, as opposed to staying in the wonderment of like, hey, I really want to know and I'm listening, as opposed to, I can't wait for you to finish so I can tell you why you're wrong. And as my father, famously said, maybe we should go back to, instead of why, ask ourselves why not. But I really appreciated, you distilling it down in terms of the why, and asking not just questions but follow-up questions. And I appreciate also the delineation, where you were talking about knowledge and wisdom. Like, there's, what the universe spoke to me about is like, knowledge is what we maybe receive and what we hoard, and wisdom is what we embody and what we share. And wisdom is meant to be shared. And so I really appreciate you being a wisdom synthesizer and distiller for humans, and certainly for for your generation. But I think I tend to look at that we're never to anything to have a fresh take on our perspective. And that's why, as I've witnessed and listened to your podcast and seen that every opportunity is a book, a chapter, a phrase for you to go deeper into, like the Nako, a song, which is, I know, I am no master, I know nothing, yet I'm a witness and I see something. It's a very humbling way, particularly coming from, as you said, the place where you knew everything. Yeah. And so, and you came into the humility. So I would love to have a little, this is all fun, but I think we can have like a little rapid fire fun.
Yeah.
So buckle up for like the rapid fire round, which I've never done before.
Seatbelt on in here.
Seatbelt on, buckle up. So I'm just going to name some people that you've had the grace of sitting with, and tell me like what is firing still in the cortex, like the mycelium network. I see that every single human being is a member of the Setu. Are you familiar with the Sanskrit word Setu?
No.
Setu means, I'm not sure if this is the actual definition, but it means, for me, benevolent bridge. And yet, perhaps don't see it as a traditional bridge, like from point A to point B. It's from point A, like a mycelium network, every different direction. And each opportunity is for somebody to step on the Setu with you, where I see you and I'm seen by you. Yeah. And we get to learn and lift and grow. So I'm just going to reference some individuals.
If I could just add on to that real quick, because as you were saying that, a guest of mine on the show, a near-death experiencer, her name is Anita Morjani. And when I interviewed her about what she saw on the other side, she said that she saw a large tapestry and how every single soul is part of that web and it's interwoven. Like there is absolutely no separation. It kind of looks, probably like this mandala. Any mandala can show us secrets of the universe. Yeah. But, we can spin. But it's that. It's like we're all part of that web, interwoven and not divided in any way.
Yeah. And just even to frame, because it's so powerful, just to frame how deep we're going to go. You've gone deep with your guests in everything from spirituality, channeling, galactic communication, quantum physics, NDEs, which I don't even know what that means.
Near-death experience.
Okay, thank you. Afterlife, ancient civilizations, healing, manifestations, lost knowledge, psychic abilities, ancestral lineages, aka uncording. So,
where do we start?
I'm just here we grow. Let's start with Blue Earth. And you mentioned, the wound is the window, but let's go deeper. What's the drop of gold you took from Blue Earth?
Well, Blue says that we all hold codes, and I think the code that Blue holds most powerfully is the code of authenticity. And she says that love is not the highest frequency. When you measure the emotional scale, you have at the lower end the shame, the guilt, the fear. But even, I think she said somewhere between 50 or 500 times more powerful than love is authenticity. And I've had a lot of profound contemplations around what it means for me to be authentic, what authenticity creates in our life. And I think the pandemic was very, it symbolized us stepping outside of our shell into authenticity, because in the beginning, we could only leave the house with a face mask. And while we're at home, we could take it off. And I think that's very metaphorical of the things we tend to do ourselves in our home, what we do when no one's watching, what we say, what we watch, what we speak, what we eat when no one's watching, what we listen to. And then we leave our door and immediately put on this fabricated costume out in the world. And we were talking about relationships as well with Blue. We talked about, it really takes anywhere between 3 to 4 months before you can actually get to know a person. You can hold a personification of yourself for 3 months, 4 months, but the more you're around a particular person, those shells start coming off and you see the person for who they truly are, and you're accessing the core of their authenticity. Authenticity is a code that I think Blue holds very, very potently, out in the world, and it shows in the magnetism that she's able to draw in her life, and the audience, the love that surrounds her, is due to that, of showing up powerfully and non-judgmentally and courageously in her own authenticity. And that's a code that I've learned from, I've picked up, and I hope to continue even just cultivating that within myself.
Shout out to Blue of Earth.
Yeah, shout out.
So what I really received from that is the authenticity, and that includes being expressed and honoring of our wounds and any things that maybe have held us back, and within that authenticity, it inspires a mycelium network, a spiral, an outward spiral of authenticity with others.
Yeah.
I think back to my father had polio, and he had something that was that, and instead of hiding from it, he it's part of him, and it leads to an attitude of gratitude. Beautiful. Garrain Jones.
Oh shit. Well, Garrain is very special to me, because I learned the first time we had an interview that we had our birthday around the same time in July. And I started my spiritual journey really learning a lot about astrology and understanding energetics, understanding not only that, the stars have some sort of influence on the dynamics of human culture and behavior, but going beyond that, it's not defining us. But when I saw Garrain in person for the first time in Egypt, I was drawn to him, and I was drawn to learn from him. And I don't know what it was. It was a very intuitive, like, I need to be around this guy. I need to be around his energy. Learning afterwards that, he's also a Cancerian, born in July. And I would see his Cancer energy of nurturing, of leadership in his own way, that I was like, I'm seeing a potential that lives within me. And I think a lot of people are mirrors to us. And me also coming from a lineage from South America, Colombia, I feel like a lot of shamanic DNA lives inside of me. And I think Garrain holds the code of shamanism and healing, and taking people to spaces that are really dark within themselves, but then pulling them out and finding that golden thread inside of everyone. So Garrain, we first got to Egypt the first night. Everyone was jet lagged. Everyone was tired. Everyone was like, oh my God, we've just been traveling. Garrain goes, whoever wants to go to the gym, I'll be in there at 6 a.m. And everyone's like, all right, bro, see you at breakfast. And I don't know what I did. I forced myself out of bed, and I showed up 6 a.m. I'm there, and there, of course, he's in there already. And I'm like, all right, let's work out. And we ended up working out together almost every day of that trip. And toward the end of the trip, we had, more people joining in. And I realized that energy that we put out is a form of leadership, because his energy, like, he already embodies that, like the discipline, the, going in the gym, working out, doing these things for his body and nourishing the vessel. But then everyone's catching on. And one imaginal cell, like in the caterpillar, there's the imaginal cells that start to wake up the caterpillar, letting it know that a metamorphosis is coming. And the imaginal cells is what become the butterfly. So an imaginal cell like Garrain woke the imaginal cell up in me. And at the end of the trip, there was like 5 or 6 of us at the gym working out, playing music. It was a whole energy that we built. And it was like, that's coherence right there. And it was, very beautiful to witness.
I love the full story, and I'm not suggesting we're going to cut this, because it's so good, and I love everything you're saying. What I'd love to do is invite it being like I don't know, no more than like 108 seconds per
Yeah,
person.
let's do it.
And
Let's
having
do
it be like, if it was a golden thread that connected
everyone
together, and we'll then play with like, what's the golden thread that connects all these great individuals. So
Let's do that.
we're gonna start again. What's the drop of gold for Blue of Earth?
Authenticity breeds creation.
Garrain Jones.
Healing is collective.
Aaron Alexander.
Movement is key.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
1 foot in the 3D, 1 foot in the quantum.
Reverend Michael Beckwith.
Pain pushes, vision pulls.
Richard Rudd.
Within your greatest shadow lies your greatest gift.
Robert Edward Grant.
Pattern recognition is the new stage of human consciousness.
B.C. Cerna.
Show up fully to who you are and not be afraid to share every aspect of yourself.
Emily Fletcher.
Sexuality is key to being an embodied human.
Charles Eisenstein.
The more beautiful world in our heart is actually possible if we focus on it.
John Gray.
Utilizing our sexual energy for self-realization is a path less walked, but very fulfilling.
Who have I not mentioned that's popping through that you want to offer a drop of gold? Including Anita, who talked about the past life.
I'm going to shout out Elunia. She's a channeler that I connected with recently, Akashic Records reader. And wow, I've learned so much from her, but we're remembering the ancient past for a reason far greater than what we think. The true ancient past.
And I didn't see him on your podcast tonight, but I know he's a very close friend and he carries so much beautiful wisdom. Andre.
Meticulous attention to detail will create beauty in the world.
So close your eyes and think back to all the drops of gold you just shared, all the people you sat with, and you can go as long as you like within this moving mouth meditation. What is the golden thread that connects it all? All the individuals you've spoken to, all the wisdom that's been shared to lead to a world that is both healing and revealing.
We were born into this physical incarnation to communicate back to Source, its grandiosity, its omnipresence, omnipotence, and every single journey or path that we take, any modality that we choose to study ourselves in, is ultimately leading us back into that source where once we came. And respecting everyone's individual journey will allow human consciousness to flourish, because we are not destined to become a hive mind. We're destined to think all in one way. It's the differences that connect us. It's the opposite ends of the spectrum that thread us together. It's the polarity that unites us. It's the light that finds itself in the darkness. It's the space within time that we are living in. And everyone that is feeling themselves called to learn from any specific teacher ultimately is choosing that teacher because it is resonant for them in that moment. But the truth lies inside of themselves. And everyone's golden nugget of wisdom is only a reflection of the consciousness they are holding in the moment, what they're willing to receive, and sometimes what the soul is guiding us toward to step into a new iteration of ourselves and of our journey. Every person that we meet, every teacher that we come across is a reflection of wisdom that we already carry within us. And we're not here to teach anyone around us, but we're here to help each other remember the wisdom that lies internally. And wisdom does not have an expiration date like these physical bodies. It transcends between lifetimes and post this lifetime that we're currently finding ourselves in. And I pray that every single human finds themselves back into a space where they can acknowledge and meet themselves in new ways every single day, because we're not one-dimensional. We are multi-dimensional beings living a linear human experience. And we can be at many places at many times and travel with our mind and do extraordinary things. But at the end of the day, what connects all of us is our individual perceptions, perspectives, experiences, because that's what we're going to take back to the source and report. When all of this is said and done, we are going to be confronted in front of God, the universe, the omnipresent one, whatever you want to call it. And that being or energy is going to ask us, what did you gather? And we are going to transmit that data so that the Creator can know itself in new ways and expand itself in consciousness. Amen.
Ashe. Aho. Let's go.
Let's go.
That's amazing. Wow. That right there is the golden mic drop. So when the golden mic drop occurs, I invite my co-spirator to actually make the auditory sound for them of the golden mic drop. Is it?
Yeah. I learned to roll my R's speaking Spanish, so.
I mean, your English is perfection, and your would it sound differently in Colombian?
The golden mic drop.
Yeah.
It would be more like a boom, 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 like a reggaeton beat.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That is amazing. Wow. Thank you. That was an amazing golden thread, drops of gold, following the thread moment. I really appreciate you with the distillation. And it's fascinating. Is there one within there that you'd like to go deeper into and take us on a journey? Maybe the one that was most recent with Dr. Joe Dispenza, 1 foot in the 3D and 1 foot in the
quantum world. Yeah, I would love, I'm an avid student of his work, and it's changed my life, many people's lives. In his retreats, he really goes deep into the teachings and what's coming through for him. And in this work, it's evolving every day, and every retreat, he's like tinkering things and changing things. But one of the teachings that for me resonates the most is, I look sometimes at like a spiritual community, and there's almost like this airy energy that you sense when you're in those spaces. But spirituality is inherently grounded because this human experience is part of that spiritual initiation. It's not separate. Some people renounce their body, especially living in modern society. I can't speak for a yogi in the Himalayas, but I can speak to people that are here to make a difference and a change in the new paradigm. And we can't separate the material world from this vast field of consciousness that we're all connected to. So in Joe's meditations, you get to a point where you separate yourself from the third dimensional reality and into that void, the unknown space, the eternal blackness. There's many different names for it throughout cultures, but when you access it, it's so easy to just want to stay there.
Yeah.
And forget about, things and conversations you need to have with people you love, or creative projects that, your human wants to get out into the world. And it's getting the insights from the quantum world. And the quantum is where all possibilities exist. And reaching in those states, we can tune into and generate certain possibilities and feelings that we want to embody then in the human experience. And it's all tied to our spiritual development as well, because you can say that person has evolved their level of consciousness to the degree that they are creating their reality and not a victim to it. Mm-hmm. Someone that can have an idea in their mind, and through understanding the quantum and getting into a state where they're not separate from an external experience that they want to bring into their life, creating it from the quantum, it's when those experiences kind of pop into your reality from out of nowhere. And people say, no, like this podcast, it came out of nowhere. But exactly, it came out of the quantum. It came out of nowhere, no space, no time, no body, no name. Those are the states that Joe wants you to, or is encouraging you to reach.
Yeah.
So learning that we can create not only from this hard work, and that's Michael Beckwith as well, like pain is pushing you, like the wound is pushing you. You want to prove yourself to the world. But when you have a vision that is pulling you, a vision of the future, then that's when the magic can begin to occur, because you're creating not only from the quantum world, but you're bringing all that down into the 3D and changing the matter around you, and changing matter is so freaking malleable. We think that we see these chairs and they're like so physical, so solid, but the moment the observer takes its mind away from it, it's no longer there. It goes from particle to wave. And that's what quantum physics is discovering, that this whole material reality really is an illusion of the mind, an illusion of consciousness more so than the mind. So the moment we lock in our consciousness into one particular outcome, that's when we draw it and we lock into it. And we can create that and manifest that into our lives. But we can't denounce the 3D because it's working with us to create from these energetic spaces.
Wow. There's a And there's an overlay to that. I had an opportunity to sit with Michael Singer and a group of other individuals. Shout out Zach Bell. Thank you for putting that together. And one of the things he talked about is renouncing preference. Renouncing preference. We want something to go a certain way, and yes, we can manifest and we can do those things, and yet letting go of preference is actually when we've surrendered into the possibility and the curiosity and the magic that can unfold, as opposed to being so corded in right, wrong, yes, no, blue, black, whatever the case might be. So there's that aspect as well.
Yeah, Joe has that exercise. It's a meditation called Tuning into New Potentials. And you take a piece of paper, you divide it in two. On the left, you write elevated emotion, and then you write clear intention on the other side. And an intention is not really a preference. It's, I intend to generate abundance through my artwork. That's an intention, but it's like I'm not gripping and holding on to I need to make money from painting, because if I don't do that, then this will happen and that will happen. That's like creating doubt and worry and locking into like a need for something and a preference. And in this sense, it's just like generating a feeling is so easy. Like we are, I've heard from people that are galactic channelers, or, I'm getting into more of the alien stuff. They say that some of these extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial beings do not have the same level of emotional body as humans. So we're literally wired to feel, and we're wired to generate emotions because it's working with us in this reality, pinging us and nudging us toward what feels most resonant in that moment, and attracting things that are on that same frequency bandwidth.
What I took from Garrain when we sat on Drops of Gold was, let's just remember that adults are deconstructed children. And, the inner child asking that why from a place of curiosity, and that's where the courage and, the connection comes from. So, well, I do have a few things that are sparking, but I'd love to maybe receive the honor and the blessing of a master inquirer. What would you like to ask me?
I love that. Let me tune into it. What needed to drop out of your life in order for you to find more gold on the other side?
What needed to drop was my self-inflicted prison cell of unworthiness and lack of expression. Because for half a century, I saw that everyone else was golden, with the exception of myself. It wasn't that I wasn't happy. It wasn't that. It just was the fact that, my whole thing was love others, then you can love yourself. And we get lost in the sauce when we do that. We know that. So what had to drop was the story around others are meant to eat first, others are meant to go first, others are meant to speak first. What also needed to drop was not seeing myself as a worthy creator or creative. I didn't see myself that way. And we're all that. Like, I genuinely believe that every one of us is an artist. And I had to literally shatter the shell that I was hiding in. As a matter of fact, the first thing that led to One Golden Thread was not clothing. It was a spoken word piece that channeled by way of buffer days on plant medicine and from listening. And once I opened up my heart in age 42 for years, and I became that guy from Memento, all the wisdom that was dispensing. And I wrote a Life 2.0 letter to myself, which I call my Humanifesto. And it was the obliterating every lie in disguise around pain and fear and ego and love and all of it. And I realized that the power of claiming our voice and then sharing our voice inspires another and another and another. And it's never about ego or amigo. It's always about we go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that had to die. And, and I'm not sitting on the mountaintop. I'm not, I'm a fully flawed human and living a relationship between the human condition and embracing the shadow within that, and the human experience, which is love, and the human experiment, which is the dance that I get to dance with those two every day.
Yeah, beautiful. And that creativity is a spark that's inside all of us.
For sure.
And, I wanted to speak into, when we began, you asked me to share like a written piece with you, if I can find it, because this is a piece that I wrote about artists and creativity. When I was in this Euro trip, going from country to country, looking out the window and just thinking about life and owning my own creativity. I actually did my master's degree last year in digital marketing. And at the end, there's this award thing and, most likely to blah, blah. I was awarded most creative. And myself 5 years ago would have never imagined that I can own the title of a creative. I'm like, what? I surround myself with people that are creative, but maybe even that's why.
Yeah.
Because we activate codes in each other just by proximity, just by interaction. Someone says something, it's like, oh, wow, what a great idea. And then we build on it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I can try to find it.
Let's go.
If I don't, we'll edit this out. But let me try.
While you're looking for that, I can pull up one of my favorite. I did find some things that I really appreciated that you wrote. So while you're finding that, how about if I just read from the book of Emilio? We have forgotten what it means to respect. To respect each other's minds is the only way to plant the seed of understanding. Our hearts shut like locked doors, and we throw bombs of insult with a mere aim towards hurting the other. There are 7 billion perspectives of life on this planet, and choosing to reject one means that we are shutting one's eyes to consciousness. The ones who believe they hold the key to the universe's secrets are flawed in the sense that there is no door capable of holding the infinite wisdom held within the Creator's force. We paint the reality we see. Eventually, our own paintbrush will lead us to the knowledge that we need to guide us in our vision of what is real and true.
Who wrote that? Not me.
Yeah, you did.
This, I mean, it's interesting because the date. I just deleted a period. So, but I wrote this 2020 or 2019.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I haven't read it in probably since that time. So I'm curious to know what 19, 20-year-old Emilio was thinking about creativity and artists and all the things that he was grappling with in his mind. And, he's in this stage of awakening and so much was happening. And, we'll see what I was thinking. The title is The Artist of Life. It goes, deep in our core, we all have an artist, a creator within. Life is our canvas, and we retain information and develop experiences in order to express it in our own creative way. The rules, the threats, the fears were all incorporated into society as a way for our ambitious nature to slowly dissolve in our own thoughts and greatest doubts. We are the masters of our reality. It lies upon our ability to look within and contemplate introspectively in order to step outside the guidelines and paint our own canvas. Our mind is the greatest asset, but unless we learn to control it, outside forces will not allow it to flourish. The key to developing a well-balanced belief system is to search for answers, learn from the great minds before us, learn from their mistakes as well as our own. The way we express humility in our success and how we pick ourselves up from the losses shape the way we think, feel, and accept life in its purest form. Life is not happening to us. Life is an endless cycle with uncontrollable factors that happen to cross paths with our reality. In the end, we are the ones that choose how to react. And learning the nature of this truth will bring infinite new lessons and insights. The artist of life. Interesting to see where I was at. I probably would have written a lot of things differently as my belief system and perceptions changed, but that's the nature of everything. Like, I would be very disappointed in myself if I still think the same way in 5 years. And it's our willingness to go to those bounds of what we thought were limitations in our own thought patterns that will determine many things of growth related aspects in the future.
Wow. To wrap up, you spoke of the power of ritual, which was very much of a permission slip and ignition ship for you in your journey with the 100 days of meditation that set a new course for you. And you can do a quick little boom stream of consciousness. What from the masters, from the titans of transformation, have you learned about what they've learned about the rituals that they're imbuing? What's a golden thread of some of the things you've learned of how some of the masters of transformation have gone deeper into their own rituals, and what are specifically some of those rituals that they're imbuing?
Yeah. I don't know why this is coming up, but sort of the imagery of speaking into feminine and the masculine, and how we've perceived that if you're a man, then you hold masculinity, and if you're a woman, you hold femininity. But we all have different balances of both energies. And a ritual for me, I have my own ritual when it comes to the podcast. It is a structured set of steps, I would say, that allow energy to be directed with precision, and almost creating a container, a masculine container, so that the feminine energy of creativity can flourish and grow. And I think these masters have learned that we operate at different states of consciousness throughout the day, and there are practices that can get us into specific states of consciousness. You know, if we need to be in a state where we have to speak or we have to hit a workout in, then our body and our mind will follow according to the environment of what's needed out of us in the moment. But then we can also trigger the state within so that the body and mind can show up in the ways that they need to. Because you might have to do a presentation or a business meeting, but if you allow the environment to control your internal state, you might get stressed or anxious or whatever it is. But if you say, I'm setting the intention through this ritual that I'm doing, whatever it is, for me, I have a cold shower before any podcast. I do 30 push-ups. I make myself a cacao, and I meditate for 30 minutes until the guest walks into the virtual studio, because I hear the ping, and that's what wakes me up from my meditation. I allow the guest in, and I'm already in a state where I've optimized my physical body. I'm sharp. my mind is in a state of alpha brain waves, maybe even close to theta if we're really flowing. But I get myself into a state so I can perform at my best. And every high performer knows how to shift their state internally before allowing the external environment to dictate their internal state.
I love that. I love that. Before we complete, we talk about various evolutions and revolutions, and we talked, about the consciousness revolution around thoughts. We talk about the food revolution, regenerative agriculture. We talk about, there's so many different things. And one of the things that, I've come into coherence with about 8 years ago was the forgotten frontiers of frequency of fabric and frequency of clothing, and the pollutingness or the potency of when we're in coherence. And I know that you're on your own journey around all of these different things about being a vertical human. What have you discovered in terms of the frequency of clothing? And maybe of late, because we've been honored to meet along that line as well.
Yeah, I realized how important it is when I would find myself wearing clothes, and I realized how much clothes can actually dictate how authentically yourself you show up in the world. And it was funny enough, in Egypt, that whole crew, like, they're wearing things that make them feel really embodied in themselves. And I'm here, I'm sitting, I'm going like, I don't feel myself in this clothes. Like, I don't feel myself. And I, always mention it to my parents, and they're like, you can never decide what clothes and what style. And it's like, I'm fluid with, how I want to feel. And I'm realizing that the habit I had taken on of going to a Zara store in Spain, and getting 5 t-shirts for minimum pricing, and then those t-shirts are worn out, or they don't fit well, or they just don't last as long. That's sort of how I came across One Golden Thread. I started seeing some of my friends in this community wear this clothes, and coincidentally, the day before I had an interview I was going to shoot here in LA, I went to the mall, and I'm like, well, let me hit up what stores they have over there. I was in there for 2 hours. I went to 5 fitting rooms, and I'm going, I was really stressed at that point. I'm like, I can't, I'm just gonna walk in naked at this point, because what am I gonna wear? And then I remembered that a friend, BC, he had recently done something with you guys, a collaboration. And I was walking by Abbot Kinney, and I saw the store in Venice. And I said, I'm just going to go there and see what happens and see what I find. And the moment I walked in, you were there, and you presented yourself, and we started talking. And that synchronicity led to this collaboration, this beautiful friendship that has emerged from just me going, I'm going to say no to all these tempting, cheap clothes that are made with fabrics probably based on child slavery across the world, and go to a conscious brand where I know it is going to be pricier, but I'm going to make an investment in myself to wear something not only that makes me feel good, but at the same time makes me understand that I'm heightening my own frequency by wearing materials that haven't been tinkered with in a negative way through the process of making it, and knowing that there's an intentionality. And I think it helped me even take the step further in deciding to buy myself a fit from One Golden Thread by having you in the store and meeting you and the way that you were showing up, and knowing this guy is a man of integrity, and he's doing things. You shared your story briefly about going around the world, tying the golden threads. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'm signing up to this. Don't even show me the receipt. I'm good.
I love it. I love it. Well, you planted 3 trees that day, and and we stand for like that notion around like the least expensive thing, and that's rarely in our closet is what we wear all the time. So own less things we love more. So speaking of the golden thread, and thank you for coming in, and thank you for looking in. By the way, like you look. I mean, I feel like I designed these clothes for you, so you look fly as fuck. So, golden thread on your wrist. That's the way this journey started. I went around the world, I shared the Humanifesto and tied golden threads on people's wrists, did the blessing I did with you about inner power, inner peace. You chose inner power. And then I asked.
That was a choice.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, you made the choice.
Yeah,
it was unconscious. You just chose
inner power.
Inner power. And one speaks to the other. So it's your power always sets your peace. So, we're going to complete this way. So put your hand over your heart. And I asked thousands and thousands of people these same questions. And I'll share with you that no 2 answers have ever been the same. So, Emilio, what does it mean to you to live life golden?
Gold has been revered for hundreds of thousands of years throughout human culture, signifying value, not only in the economy, but in appearance and just the level of reverence that we've had for this one mineral. And I feel that that's the same level of respect, reverence, and appreciation that we should have for ourselves, as if we were golden. And the moment we can step into life, knowing that truly about ourselves and stepping into that, then life will become golden. Life will become that we are.
Second question. What's a self-love tip that you've discovered to tap back to that when we forget?
Self-love tip. I'm not too big on the love languages thing. I feel like we all show up with different love languages depending on the scenario, but words of affirmation, I feel like when we acknowledge someone with true words coming from our heart, we're saying that to ourselves, and it heightens. It's even bigger than saying, I am sexy, I am beautiful in the mirror, because if you can say to someone and truly see them, you're meeting yourself, and the gratitude that you receive from that person is sending love to you as well. So it's like a win-win-win-win throughout. So like really showing up with someone. That's why I love taking time at the end of the interview, even if the guest is in a rush, even if they got to leave, I'm like just acknowledging the person, seeing them, even if it's through a screen. Like we can all meet each other and love them in that way and love ourselves back by doing that.
Third and final question. The golden thread that connects us all is?
Creation. The will and desire to create.
Emilio Ortiz, welcome to Drops of Gold. Let's do this.
The Viking.
The Viking
Yes,
handshake. And I want to acknowledge you for being a seeker, seer, sayer, and truly a beer. And that's what I'm witnessing, is your journey is profoundly humbling, honoring for humanity, and in so you are honoring yourself and honoring us all in the process. So thank you for being the blessing that you are. And I will, if that resonates with you, I will share with you what's going to be chapter 1 of a book that I'm writing. Which is put your hand over your heart and say thank you, and take a deep breath up and say, I know.
Thank you. I know. Beautiful.
It's time to upgrade your wardrobe with One Golden Thread, the brand that's redefining fashion and making a positive impact on the planet. I'm Jeff Scult, founder and designer. With One Golden Thread, you're not just buying clothes, you're planting seeds of change. And hey, because why not? Here's a first-time checkout love code from me, deeper than anything you will find elsewhere. Drops of Gold. Find your sexy and soulful golden thread self at One Golden Thread. Drops of Gold is your go-to code. You are golden. We're all connected as one golden thread. Thank you for joining us on Drops of Gold. We trust you found listening as delightful as we found creating. Now let me tell you, it takes a village to nourish a dream. Big shout outs to One Golden Thread for powering the pod, to co-producers Mark Shapiro, Josh Robertson, and Victory for bringing it all to life, Kat Benzova for her stunning guest portraits, and special thanks to artist Taib for featuring his electrifying new track, Departures. And infinite love to you for your curiosity and commitment to living in your highest vibrational truth. Aho! Here we grow. We are all designed to be reminded we are already golden inside. I'm Jeff Scult, wishing you a radically yes fuck yes day. Ashe.
TV.